Welcome back, capital F football fans, to the O&O Sports YouTube channel. Today, we are looking at the last and final game of the 2024-2025 college football season. Absolutely heart-wrenching sentence to come out of my mouth, but we should be ending it with a bang because we have Ohio State and Notre Dame facing off in the national championship game. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and without further ado, let's jump into the tale of the tape, starting with the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're 13-2 overall with an 8-2 conference record. Their best wins this year have been Oregon, Texas, and Penn State. In terms of total offense, they rank 25th in the country. In terms of total defense, they rank first among all teams in the United States of America. Strength of schedule, they're second. In the college football playoff ranking, they're sixth, and our good buddy Todd has them at first. Great stats down the line for the Buckeyes, but for the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, they're 14-1 overall. They of course have no conference record, and their best wins this year have been Georgia, Penn State, and Indiana. In terms of total offense, they rank 43rd in the country and 7th in total defense. The same thing for strength of schedule at 7th there, and in the college football playoff ranking, they are 5th, and our good buddy Todd has them at 2nd. Pretty interesting splits down the board for both of these teams. Clearly one side is going to be heavily favored in this one, but with that, let's look at our players to watch in this one. Starting with the Ohio State Buckeyes, on offense, it's going to be the quarterback Will Howard. He's had a miraculous postseason, completing 73.6% of his passes for over 900 yards, 6 touchdowns with 2 interceptions in just 3 postseason games. Great numbers there, and when the lights have gotten the brightest this year, it seems like he has stepped up and ascended to that next level. He's had Ohio State on his back this postseason, and the same goes for that defense, whose player to watch will be defensive back Caleb Downs, who's logged 10 solo tackles, a tackle for loss, an interception, and 3 pass defenses in this postseason. He's played a pivotal role for the Buckeyes throughout this run, and we think he's the player to highlight here just because of how important it'll be that he makes plays at every level in this one, like he has a knack for doing. In the Cotton Bowl, he made 2 of the biggest plays late in that matchup, one that helped seal it for the Buckeyes, both of which helped put Ohio State in a better position to win in that matchup, and he's going to need to do it again here against Notre Dame. And for Notre Dame, who else would it really be on offense other than the quarterback Riley Leonard? In this postseason, he's completed 66% of his passes for 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Not great numbers there, but he has an additional 43 carries, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. If you've been watching, you know he's been a true leader on that team, and he's been able to elevate the dudes around him to help them play to the level that they have this postseason, and he's going to need to push just a little bit more to get the Irish over the edge here. He's going to need his defense to help him out just a bit as well, as they've done all year. For your defense player to watch, it's going to be the safety Xavier Watts. He's got a lot of ground to cover here, but this defense has played team ball all year. No one single guy has had to carry the load by himself, so he should have plenty of help here. In this postseason though, he's logged 16 solo tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and an interception. Been a great player for them, and it's going to be really important that he makes his presence felt in that secondary. We saw Texas flat out eliminate Jeremiah Smith from that game, and it ended up working pretty nicely for them. Gonna need to do something similar here if you're Marcus Freeman and Al Golden, but we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves there. Let's look at our keys to victory in this matchup, starting of course with Ohio State. It's going to be loading the box. Like we've said a number of times throughout this postseason, we know exactly who Notre Dame is. They are a very predictable team. It's just been hard to stop for teams like Indiana and Penn State, but in our opinion, Ohio State is much better than those teams. They at least have a much better front 7 than those guys, and the blueprint is there. They just need to execute it a bit better than everyone else, and they also need to air the ball out. We think the combo of Henderson and Judkins has been phenomenal throughout this postseason. We think they can have a huge impact on this game, but we don't see them as the biggest X factors in this one, especially with how Al Golden likes to run his defense. We still expect a lot of runs here, don't get us wrong. We're not saying to go full air raid, but from what we saw, Penn State had a lot of dudes dudes open in the secondary this past week. A lot of openings that Drew Allard just could not seem to take advantage of. But we think with Will Howard throwing to guys like Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, and the emerging receivers in this postseason, G. Scott the tight end, and Carnell Tate, it could make for a much more beneficial game plan if they decide to go that way. And last for the Buckeyes, we think they need to be aggressive on special teams. We know a little obscure, but if you think about Notre Dame, you know Mitch Jeter has been automatic this postseason kicking field goals. You know that James Rendell has had no issues punting either. And in our opinion, there's no better way to throw a team off than get those guys off their game. If it were me, I'm sending 7 or 8 guys at the punter a few times in this one, even more at Jeter if Notre Dame decides to kick from 45 plus. If you can get a blocked field goal or a blocked punt in this one, we think Notre Dame gets a little timid, might start playing on their heels a little bit. They haven't seen that kind of adversity, and that sets up a pretty smooth route to victory for the Buckeyes in this one, again, in our opinion. And for Notre Dame, our first key to victory is going to be getting creative in the backfield. We think Notre Dame has one of the best running games in football. Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard, amazing trio running the football, but Ohio State is just not going to allow you to run all over them in this one. We still think they can get some explosive plays, but if we're Mike Denbrock, we're setting up screen passes, wide receiver screens, wide receiver sweeps, running back screens, anything you can do really to space out that Ohio State defense so that you can end up getting those 4, 5, 6 yard runs in between the tackles. You also need to get pressure on Will Howard. We said it last week for Texas, and it ended up working in their favor. They forced him to throw a pick, and he ended up having his worst game of the postseason so far in terms of yards, touchdowns, and passer efficiency rating. You need to do that again here. Get in his face, get him on the ground, and you could end up in a similar spot to Texas where you're knocking on the door late in this one. You just shouldn't run a toss play for a 7-yard loss and then give up a 93-yard strip sack touchdown. But I digress. Last for Notre Dame, it's going to be winning up front in the trenches. The blueprint has been out on Ohio State all year. Oregon did it earlier in this year. Michigan did it late. Nebraska even did it against them for 3.5 quarters. And that blueprint involves winning in the trenches and churning out drives. Obviously, Ohio State has looked a lot more physical in that aspect in this postseason, but this is going to be their 4th game in a month. They're going to be worn out. They're going to be a bit hobbled. We saw as much in the Cotton Bowl. So it is imperative that you pull that feet off here if you want to hold the 2024 crown. And speaking of which, let's look at our prediction for this matchup. As always, me and my robot co-host Todd are going to have 2 separate predictions for this matchup. One that his no good iRobot having brain conjures up, and one that my human blue collar American one does as well. Todd is unbeaten in this postseason. He's a perfect 10 for 10, and I am just a lowly 9 of 10 this year. Thanks, Georgia. And unfortunately, it looks like Todd will be ending this year on top because we are on the same page here. Todd has Ohio State winning this matchup 31-20, and specifically for the love of the game, I'm thinking this one teeters on the edge of splattering territory. Give me the Buckeyes to win 38-21 and give Ohio State that national title trophy to end the 2024 college football season. It's been a wild ride, and we're glad you came along with us for it. And as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, be sure to share with a couple of your friends, your aunt, your uncle, whoever it may be. It is greatly appreciated, and we will see you in the next one.